Hey YouTube, Joe's Two Car Garage, and we're looking at the 1999 Pontiac Firebird LSX swap. And it's been about 3 years since I made a video about this car. And well, we'll address the reason why. And in one of my earlier videos, I mentioned that one of my other hobbies is riding my bicycle. And 3 years ago, I was riding my bicycle and I got hit by a car. And I broke 10 ribs and a collarbone, punctured a lung, and got some nerve damage in my hip. And it took me about a year to recuperate fully from that and get back into some kind of shape that I wanted to do stuff. And I just started off slow. 2018, I puttered around with a little bit of the wiring in the car, and there were a few things that were incorrect in the car. When I last made a video on it, there was a grinding in the front end. The exhaust system used to fall off. The motor didn't run right. The air conditioning wasn't complete. The trans didn't function correctly. And a lot of little tiny stuff. So I concerned myself with a lot of little stuff. I traced a lot of wiring for the PCM harness. Made sure that stuff was okay. Last year, 2019, I figured out what the grinding noise in the front end was that on the test drive that I was hearing, and I was putting the Speedline wheels on it that I had picked up, and found that there was a problem in the brakes in the front end. So I was able to fix that last year, and got the Speedlines on it, and let it go at that for last year. And this year I decided that this is the year that, number one, right now we're not doing the turbo. There's a lot going on with the swap, just as a swap, just getting the motor in it and getting it to run correctly and the trans to work right and the rear end and everything else to work the way I want it. So for right now, we're just doing an NA build, and we're going to shelve the turbo for now. So as a motivator, I came in the garage earlier this season and jacked the car up and slid underneath it, pulled the entire exhaust system off of it after figuring out what I wanted to do with it. I modified it a little bit. I had to shorten it by 2 inches and bring the whole thing forward to get it to sit in the hangers correctly so it would stop falling off. I put it all back together and got it in place, and now it stays on the car. The tips are tucked under the bumper like they're supposed to be instead of sticking out everywhere. Looks and sounds pretty damn good. I'm real happy with that. The next thing that I started working on was the way it ran and the transmission. In trying to figure out what was going on as a process of elimination, I decided to send the PCM to Frost and have him put a tune on it, just to get that over with. And when it came back, the motor did run a lot better, and the transmission functions correctly now. So as far as that goes, thank you Mike, and thank you Richard at Detroit Transmission for building one of the best transmissions I've ever driven. I love this thing. It shifts like a monster. Thank you, sir. Fantastic job. I really love the way that thing shifts from first to second. It just puts you right in the seat, and that's without the motor even running correctly. So now we'll move on to that. So to refresh your memory, it's a 5.3 Chevy Silverado truck motor that I've put 4.8 flat top pistons in with new rings. I had the crank polished, all new bearings, 862 ported and polished heads, LS1 intake manifold, and a ported throttle body. It's got 1 7/8" long tube headers on it. And the intake manifold, when I bought it, had the 28-pound injectors, the smallest injectors that Chevrolet ever put on an LS motor. And even after we put the tune on it, it still didn't run right. It still fell on its face, had a lot of flat spot in the gas pedal, just didn't perform correctly. It sounded to me like it was short of fuel. I called Ken C and discussed it with him. He suggested these injectors. These are 42-pound injectors at 58 psi fuel pressure. And the minute I put them in, the car completely changed. It's got good gas pedal response now. Runs 1,000 times better. And then Ken, a few days later, put it on his laptop and did some tweaking for me to get the thing to at least drive like a tamed animal instead of just a monster. And thank you very much, Ken. I appreciate your time and your help more than you'll ever know. Thing runs good. I like it. We got a couple things we still need to tweak, but I can drive it every day and just be happy with it. And as far as making it run and be comfortable, I got to thank my buddy Bob Lepisto for helping me get this air conditioning system together and functioning. I don't know what happened, but somewhere along in the wiring harness build, I decided I wasn't putting air conditioning on it. And I tucked all the wires into the harness and taped them all up. And Bob and I this year made the hoses that I needed to finish it, and nothing would work. It took me 3 days to figure out what was missing in the wiring, get everything back together, and get it functioning. And then he finished charging it. Now it runs. It's ice cold air, man. It's fantastic. So, motor's getting better every day I drive it. It's the tune. It's learning the tune that it needs, and I'm fairly happy with it. It's got a couple of issues that we still got to work on, but as far as running and driving, now the Camaro's alarm's gonna sound, so it's jealous. You know what I mean? It'll straighten out in a second. As usual, it always does this when it's cold. There she is. Transmission, everything works good now, so next step is going to be onto the stereo system as we continue to work on drivability and getting it to run and drive even better. So there's your update, your long overdue update, YouTube. So so be like Joe. Go out in the garage and play with your junk. All right, we'll talk to you later.